guys, Josh at Bane Tech, and it is this week's edition of Ask Bane, a video series I put together about a month and a half ago. And it's questions from you guys. You can ask me on the social networks. All my links to my profiles are in the description, so click away, follow me, add me, whatever the social network calls for. But that's the way to ask your questions. You can ask on there, or you can ask on videos like this down in the comments. For this week's question, it comes from Marshall, and he asks, what is better, or what's the differences, or kind of like a versus kind of video between Xposed Framework or loading a ROM on your phone? Now, before I get into kind of the versus, this and that, I do have to say that you got to be rooted. You have to have a rooted phone in order to do this. This is speaking for Android. And a prerequisite is that you don't have to actually have an unlocked bootloader to run both of them. But the stipulation though is if you do have a locked bootloader, you'll have to run SafeStrap so you can load up ROMs. To use Xposed Framework, you don't have to have SafeStrap. You don't have to have unlocked bootloader to use it. Now, my experience with both, and I started off using ROMs a lot more back in from the start of using rooted phones back in the original Droid days, using ROMs. I used a lot of them up until probably a year or so ago, and I was exposed to Xposed Framework a few months ago, and I started using that a lot, and it really came in handy because I had a Galaxy S4 and a Note 3. And with those being on a Verizon network, and this pretty much goes the same for AT&T users, is that the bootloaders are locked, meaning I can't install a custom recovery to load up a ROM in place of the stock firmware or stock ROM. And with that said, there's kind of like your first little topic point there, is that with Xposed Framework, you don't have to worry about all the ROMs, or you don't have to worry about custom recoveries or anything like that. You don't have to. It's nice. It's very, very nice to have custom recovery because you can back up everything in case something goes wrong. You can just start over right where the backup left off of. So with Xposed Framework, with the locked bootloader, if something does go wrong, you pretty much gotta unroot. You gotta go to Odin and do all that kind of jazz, unless if you can find a fix. And it just really depends on what kind of up the creek without a paddle situation that you're in. So that in itself is a benefit of a ROM, with the unlocked bootloader having a custom recovery because of the backup aspect. Now, like I said and kind of alluded to, it's like I pretty much use Xposed Framework mostly now because I like how I can just kind of just pick and choose the little pieces that most ROMs include in their features. A couple of examples would be advanced power menu, which that gives you the option to reboot into your bootloader, hot boot, fast boot, things like that. And it really comes in handy if you like it. There's little tweaks like having your flashlight turn on in different instances, or muting your volume. When you get to a certain point, when you're cranking up the volume on your phone, you get that warning, it's not good for you, all that kind of stuff. You can disable that with Xposed Framework modules and tweaks. Now with ROMs, usually it's you get your developer, and they build their own custom ROM. It's like what they think needs to be included in it, what they like about it, and kind of the stuff that people go towards. Pac-Man ROM for one. It's a AOSP ROM. It's a stock Android ROM, but it's got a mix of all the AOSP top dogs into one ROM, which is really cool. It's the one I like to run when I am running a ROM. Pac-Man is awesome. I really like it. Now, depending on the phone and the carrier that you have, depends on the developer and the ROM that is available to you. Now, a lot of times the developers will try to reach across many devices so that way you get the same experience. Like if you really like a particular ROM on, let's say if you had an S4 but you just upgraded to the Note 3, you could just basically pick up where you left off as far as being able to run the same kind of ROM. That's a benefit to that. If you don't like to get into the intricate details, or if you don't like to kind of gather all the stuff that you like individually, ROM might be for you. If you don't like to, if you just want to basically download something and have it all working, and you don't mind some extra stuff that you might not use, a ROM would be good for you. But Xposed Framework, I really like Xposed Framework on a stock Android device, especially because I really like the stock Android for one, but then you can just go in there and grab the features that you like and not worry about any of that other kind of stuff. If you like to change the look of your phone, there's always the option of downloading Nova Launcher, to where you can download different icon packs and whatnot. If you like just the stock Android look, all you need is just to get those different features like the advanced power menu, screenshot, screen recording, all that kind of stuff. That's what Xposed Framework does. Another benefit to running a ROM is that normally the developer will do some performance tweaks, which isn't necessarily something that you can do with Xposed Framework. Xposed Framework might give you some of those options, but you gotta know what you're doing. The developer, on the other hand, with a ROM, they are able to basically do it all for you, and they're gonna tweak the performance so that way your phone is running smoothly, running faster, snappier, and whatnot. Now you might be asking, well, can't I run both Xposed Framework and a ROM at the same time? The answer is probably and maybe, and it's kind of like it depends on what ROM it is. Most of the time you can run Xposed Framework on any ROM. However, you can't ask the developer to run troubleshooting or anything like that if you're adding stuff on top of his stuff, because they're concentrating on the content that they have within it, within their own ROM, and they can't really do support kind of answering and troubleshooting if something goes wrong if you're trying to run Xposed Framework on their ROM. Now you might be able to ask the question in like a general help kind of thread or something like that, but I wouldn't load up like the thread of that ROM, say, hey, you know, I tried running this Xposed Framework module on your ROM, but it's not working. He can't support all that kind of stuff, so just keep that in mind whenever you're kind of running into problems. You might actually want to go to the Xposed Framework thread instead of the ROM. So in short, I would say that I give Xposed Framework a little bit more of an edge just because of the way I use the phone. I like to kind of just pick the pieces that I like and put it on what I'm running instead of a whole ROM that might not have stuff that I want on anyways. And there's nothing wrong with a ROM. Like, most of the time they are flawless, there's nothing wrong with them, or there's just one simple thing that you have to kind of live with, and usually the developer's working on a fix anyways. So again, I give the edge to Xposed Framework because of the way I use the phone, but there are some amazing ROMs out there that include some really cool features to check out. So head over to XDA forums, you know, find your phone, find your developer, find your ROM. So I'll leave a link in the description of the Xposed Framework series that you can check out some of the different features that I've discovered. Alright, so that wraps it up for this edition of Ask Bane. This goes live every Tuesday, 7 o'clock Central Time, so be sure to subscribe so you can see next week's episode, along with all the other content that I provide. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so you can see more videos like this. Yeah.